Welcome to No Apologies. I'm Dana Lash. You know the social justice movement has jumped the shark when it's worn like a fashion accessory on an Anna Wintour dress or couture handbag. That's what happened at last night's Met Gala. Now, because you have a life and you probably don't GAF and you're probably so repulsed by Hollywood at this point, you are one of the lucky ones who don't know what the Met Gala is. So I'll explain what it is just so you kind of understand when cable news throws this at you. The Met Gala, also known as the Met Ball, it is basically a way for rich people to write off their fun for the night, okay? It's an annual fundraising gala, and everybody writes off for their taxes. It's for the benefit of the Metropolitan Museum of Art's Costume Institute in New York City. And the Met Gala is widely regarded as among the most prominent and exclusive social events in the world. So it's pinkies out, noses up. It's that kind of event. So it's where all the elite get together. They dress up like Christmas trees. And like, for instance, this is, I don't know, I guess that's Lady Gaga on the screen. There's another one from Katy Perry in 2019. She looks like a Christmas ornament there. It's supposed to, you're supposed to look like a member of, like a citizen from Whoville, from Dr. Seuss. And it's all like, everybody does this. It's they all show up, they all dress up fancy. Now this would all be fine and dandy because we're used to kind of celebrities worshiping themselves. It's a spectacle. And in some ways, it's kind of fun to see who's the most ridiculous. But narcissism reigns supreme, nuance doesn't. So what else would you expect? Of course, it's not about extravagance and narcissism anymore, though, especially today. Celebrity galas like the Met Gala or Gala are also a chance to let the world know what a superior human being that you are. And many celebrities did just this. So this is British model, I don't even know how you say her name, Cara Delevingne? So I'm assuming that. By the way, do you want me to explain what her shirt means or do you want to Google it? Don't Google it, right? She wants you to know that she can spell patriarchy. She knows what pegging means, but maybe not so much patriarchy. Anyway, she had said, quote, "It's about women, empowerment, gender equality. It's a bit like stick it to the man," end quote. Sure it is. Gosh, put a hand over my mouth. So powerful. By the way, how amazing that you think it's all about women's empowerment when, you know, tell me how Afghanistan is going and the women there. They just got to wear blue and black colored burqas. Wow. Megan Rapinoe wanted you to know that it was something like In Gay We Trust. Was it annoying political messages that are trite and pretentious and really just kind of overplayed? Because I think it was that was the theme last night. Because there's one human being maybe who is left on earth who doesn't know Megan Rapinoe is gay. Guys, did you know that she's gay? Wait a second, it's been 5 seconds since you were all told that Megan Rapinoe is gay. Hey, she's gay. Did you guys know that? Her, wait, this way, yeah, that way, she's gay. And she plays soccer, but did you know she's gay? Nobody cares, gosh, stop, it's like Fetch and Gretchen Wieners. Stop trying to make it, nobody cares. All right, not to be outdone in the virtue signaling competition, AOC outshone them all, wearing her politics on her sleeveless dress. And Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is here for it, just like she's here for socialism, and she is here for socialism, just like she's here for $2,000 suits. Socialism and Marxism, all parts of the same dog, are awesome when you're one of the elite, as AOC will tell you. And she'll also tell you how cool socialism is as well, because it's edgy to be a socialist, like it always is, apparently. This is the dress she wore to the Met Gala, right? Tax the rich. She actually looks like a Chick-fil-A bag. That's super original. Let's take a wedding dress and write words on it. Now, irony is not something that ever occurs to AOC. Remember, she's the Amelia Bedelia of Congress. She literally thought you could pull yourself up by your own bootstraps and argued with it on Twitter. She doesn't have time to think about hypocrisy of her dress or her life in general. She's too busy getting to the gifting suite. The fact that she lives in a super bougie luxury apartment in DC, built adjacent to a Whole Foods, it's like South Park, and it's, what did they call it? Soho Sopa. It's Kenny's, the apartment, the lofts at Kenny's. That's what they called it. Watch that episode, it's brilliant. By the way, it features an indoor lap pool, a rooftop dog park, that sounds so bad, and a golf simulator studio and a rooftop tennis court. That doesn't even make her blush. Or the fact that she drives like one of the top of the line Teslas, and she attended a Met Gala where tickets cost $30,000. The table's $270,000. Can we just stop here for 1 second? If I'm going to spend $30,000 to eat a dinner, it better be a damn T-Rex egg, right? I better have Julia Child reanimated from the grave, cracking me up, Chappelle Crib style, a damn dinosaur egg, and put it over easy or something, or scramble it up, hibachi at my table. And that $270,000 table that I'm eating that dino egg prepared for me by the reanimated Julia Child, that table better straight the hell up, float up in the air like a Harry Potter movie. $30,000. That's like a car. That's some people's entire salary for a plate. And then you go dress up like a Chick-fil-A bag. $30,000, right? Because that's how socialism works, guys. Don't you know? Socialism is super dope. See, when you're a socialist like AOC, you get to live like a rich person while talking about sticking it to the rich people. One thing to note, when she says tax the rich, I don't know if she's actually settled her back taxes. Look that up. But she's really talking about you, right? The middle class pays the vast majority of taxes. If you want to increase tax revenues, and these are from the IRS figures that they hide on the internet, if you want to increase revenues, you are by default, you would have to, raise taxes on the middle class, or you could just not spend, right? How about you lower taxes and not spend so much? Quick factoid, the US has one of the most progressive systems of taxation in the world, in which high income people pay literally the highest tax rates. So we do tax the rich. In fact, the top income bracket pays more than the lower brackets combined, plural. So if AOC got off TikTok, maybe she would know that. Looking at all the federal taxes, and the Congressional Budget Office shows that the top 1% pay about 40% of all the federal taxes in America. The bottom 50% of income earners pay 3%. But that doesn't matter, because AOC knows if you just want to play social justice warrior, you talk about soaking the rich while actually living like them, calling yourself a socialist and attending their events at which they write off the whole damn event for a tax break. Gosh, the irony. So she's a clueless walking contradiction. And her heart's not in the right place. She may do everything she can, like all socialists, to tell you to cut your carbon emissions while she herself lives the good life. But that's just socialist privilege. It's how socialists roll. Like Elizabeth Warren, she's worth, like $8 million. Bernie Sanders, he's never held a private sector job a day in his old, crusty life, and he owns multiple homes. Or Barack Obama, he's worth, $70 million? I don't have a problem with people making money, especially if they make it in the private sector, by the way. But they all claim to want socialism. But they just want that for you, just like they're for masking for you. So this is a very telling photo. So here's AOC getting all ready for the big night, like the Cinderella of socialism. Do you notice something? Her sustainably focused, by the way, she made a big deal about that being an immigrant designer. Her immigrant designer is literally from Canada. And that's how AOC referred to her designer. She's wearing a mask, and I just report the facts here. So many people pointed out online that all of the poors at the Met Gala, they all had to wear a mask, right? Of course, the worker bees had to wear a mask. They were not allowed to show their faces. Every good little socialist knows that. And because socialism is the scam where the elite get to keep their money and status while they make you live according to the tenets of socialism like a serf, see how that works? Because there's nothing special about you. Showing your face is only for rich socialists who are more special, like AOC. We learned all of this a few weeks ago when Barack Obama had his B-Day on Martha's Vineyard. Mask-free. Actually, I don't have a problem if they want to be mask-free, but these are the people who tell us to wear masks, so I have to have a problem with that. And this, by the way, when he had his B-Day party out in the Hamptons, that was at the height of the media panic about Delta, Delta, Delta. Meanwhile, most school districts were masking your kids like these kids in San Diego. Oh, look how horrible that looks. Here's another shot of the drone bees out there to cater to the elites who care about the working class and equality for women, like New York Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney. That is why she and AOC speak up for women when men play women's sports like trans women are doing. Wait, they don't do that. No, they don't. Meanwhile, this is happening in New York. The COVID patrol. It's like, who is his name? It's like the guy from Arachnophobia, John Goodman. Or Ghostbusters, one of the two. Just walking around, spraying all the germs away in the classroom. That looks super science. It's like he's spraying for cockroaches or something. I wonder if they sprayed the Met Gala like they did that classroom. Do you think? Oh, wait, that's right. Socialists don't get the COVID. Super weird, little known fact about the virus. Again, the virus, like masks and like higher taxes, these things are for you, Now, I want to be fair. AOC did allow her sustainably focused from Canada immigrant designer to take her mask off, and that was a super big mistake because she's like really pretty. And AOC, even with her wedding dress that looks like a Chick-fil-A bag, was probably feeling a bit like chopped liver. So put your mask back on, lady. Now here's AOC. This is her with her sustainably focused immigrant from Canada designer talking about the statement that they were hoping to make with their Tax the Rich dress, by the way. Watch.
When Aurora and I were first kind of partnered, we really started having a conversation about what it means to be working class women of color at the Met. And we said, you know, we can't just play along, but we need to break the fourth wall and challenge some of the institutions. And you know, while the Met is known for its spectacle, we should have a conversation about it.
Why is everyone like, let's have a conversation, but you're actually not having a conversation? I hate some of these like rhetorical crutches people use because they don't have any other thoughts in their head. She doesn't like attracting attention to herself. I have a bridge to sell you. But she couldn't allow the Met Gala to go by without standing up for working class women of color, because being a woman of color means you're a marginalized voice. That's why you need to write "Tax the Rich in Blood Red" on your white dress, because you have to shout over all of the white privilege when you're oppressed like AOC. Gosh, aren't you oppressed? I mean, you're not forced to live in like a bougie luxury DC building. And I don't know if you can actually say that you're working class when your only job is to be in government. What about AOC's designer? The immigrant designer, the one she kept saying was her immigrant designer specifically. I mean, she was very pretty, walking around AOC all night, like some kind of virtue signaling accessory to her outfit. I don't know anybody else that has like the designer. I mean, maybe some of them take their designer as their date. Maybe that was the situation here, but it didn't seem like that. No, surely this girl, this designer, was persecuted, right? Surely, for being a girl who dreamed one day of escaping her patriarchal home and designing a dress for a woman of color like AOC to wear to the Met Gala. No, she's from Canada, like I said, Canada. They make it sound like, I don't know, that she's from Pakistan or Afghanistan. No mention of Afghanistan women, by the way. Did I tell you that they now get to vary their whole outfits by blue burqas and black burqas? Those match the bruises that the Taliban give them for showing any kind of skin or trying to get educated, learning to read, or I don't know, anything else. No, the whole immigrant designer thing, that was just the narrative that she wanted, and that's all that counted to her. So like everything else that she does, I mean, socialism's good stage for social media. It's good theater. But AOC is kind of like the Greta Thunberg of the American left, like the older Greta Thunberg who mixed drinks of the American left. Greta Thunberg is used by her parents to sell fake global climate emergency to children, and AOC is basically a social media influencer who's like one step away from like linking stuff on Like It, Own It. Isn't that like that app that people use? Like, she's one step away. She's trying to sell everybody on a failed idea called Marxism. And Marxism, I don't know if AOC realizes what it is or the carnage that it's caused in the last 100 years. You've had hundreds of millions killed, Soviet gulags filled with political prisoners, desperation, poverty, and chaos everywhere it's tried. Venezuela, Cuba, North Korea, Cambodia, the former Soviet Union. You can go on and on. Socialism and Marxism, it's all pretty much the same damn thing. It's all a scam. And the Met Gala is the perfect encapsulation of how that scam works. In socialist societies, the rich mix with the rich, maskless, while all the workers wear masks. One set of rules for the self-appointed elites and another for you. And the socialist elites do all of this while preaching about their love of common man. As AOC tweeted later that night, she said, quote, "The medium is the message," end quote. Now, what she's suggesting, that what makes her message so poignant in the first place is the place that it was delivered and the way it was delivered. But that's just cheap virtue signaling. Seriously, you're going to wear that to one of the richest, glitziest events ever, and then you're acting like you have a own. You're part of the rich. Which is all socialism is, by the way. When you get down to this, you talk up how you care about the working class while you fleece them, and you live high off the hog on actually what they're doing. That is until you run out of all of their money, as Margaret Thatcher once said. Reminds me of what a certain working class carpenter turned preacher once said of the ruling elite in his day. They were called the Pharisees or the scribes, and they loved to talk a big game about God and charity, but it was just a scam to protect their money. And he was a Jewish carpenter who turned the world upside down. And he said this of the ruling elite, the self-appointed elite of their day. For they speak, but they do nothing. They fasten heavy loads, hard to carry. They lay them on people's shoulders, but they themselves don't move a finger. All they do all of their works to be seen by others. Sound familiar? There's nothing new under the sun, it seems, including a dress worn by a hypocritical socialist elitist named AOC. A dress only worn to be seen by others with an old and disproven cliche written on it. A cliche that she herself doesn't even intend to live by. In fact, remember, make sure you Google what her past business owes, because they were hit with a warrant for not having back taxes paid. Does she actually even pay her fair share? Curious. Oh, I wonder if she herself is going to actually claim anything that she did last night as a tax break. And if she got that dress as an in-kind donation, is that something that she's going to have to claim? She didn't miss that free gifting suite either. All right, so coming up, now you know that Joe Biden is a uniter, and that's why Biden asked 11 Trump appointees to step down or be fired from military academy boards. So much unity. One of those appointees, my friend Sean Spicer, joins us next to discuss. Keep it here. Black Rifle Coffee Company is a veteran-owned coffee company serving premium coffee to people who love America. They develop their explosive roast profiles with the same mission focus that they learned while serving our great nation. And with every purchase you make, Black Rifle Coffee gives back. So in 2020, they donated over 6 million cups of coffee to veteran, law enforcement, and first responder causes. Their high-quality coffee beans are imported all the way from Colombia and Brazil and carefully roasted at their facilities in Tennessee and Utah. They even have a signature roast called Lava Panther that's directly sourced from lava. No, it's actually from a small farm in Guatemala, but whatever. We'll pretend. So even though temperatures are cooling off and it is approximately 79 degrees here, it's time to put a fire in, right? All in Texas. Don't forget to keep enjoying the great outdoors fueled by Black Rifle Coffee. The best way to do it is that coffee club. So when you join, you get your chosen brew, roasted package shipped right to your door, and you get special discounts, so much more. So make sure that you purchase at blackriflecoffee.com/Dana. Use code Dana at checkout for 20% off your purchase in your first coffee club order. You know what would unite America? To persecute the last administration and everyone who served in it to the nth degree. It looks like Biden intends to do just that. He just asked, actually just earlier this week, actually or late last week, 11 Trump appointees to step down or be fired from military academy boards. And a lot of these people have actual military service. Sean Spicer, former press secretary for Donald Trump and author of the upcoming book out on October 26 called Radical Nation, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's Dangerous Plan for America, joins me now. Sean, good to see you, as always. This was so incredibly petty. What other president has ever asked anybody to do this before?
Well, before I get to that, I want to say thank you for showing the front of the book. I'm really impressed with the back of the book, because that's your name right there. I appreciate that.
So everybody's got to get this book now.
You know, the front is great, but I think the back is what matters most. It's got your name on there. I really appreciate your friendship, your support.
Thanks.
But you're right. This has never happened before. And I think for a lot of folks in D.C., they go, oh, this is what normally happens. Actually, it's not. And the worst part about it is, so number one, they don't have the right. We have a 3-year term. We were appointed to in my case, the U.S. Naval Academy Board of Visitors, and H.R. McMaster and General Keynes to the West Point Board. And so number one, it doesn't happen. Number two, the White House Press Secretary, Jen Psaki, came out into the White House press briefing room. And instead of saying, well, the president wanted to change, she said that, she was going to talk about qualifications. And I thought, oh, my God, okay, look, I don't put my name in the same list as General Keane or Lieutenant General Swan or Lieutenant General McMaster, but I've served for 22 years. I have a master's degree from the U.S. Naval War College. I have several decorations and awards. And the idea that Jen Psaki is sitting there in the White House briefing room talking about my military qualifications, and with all due respect, we all serve our country in different ways, but I don't believe she spent a day in the military. It sounded to me unbelievably disrespectful to have her get up there and question my qualifications to serve on the board that I was appointed to in 2019 and have done so ably, I think, for the past 2 years. But this just shows you, Dana, the length that this administration will go to politicize every institution that still exists.
I mean, the position on the board, I mean, the way that I've seen so many people try to defend Biden's actions in whether it's CNN or MSNBC or some of these editorials or, the talking heads on Twitter, they act like you apparently carry so much leverage and power that you could undermine Donald Trump in the manner that Mark Milley has apparently, or undermine Joe Biden the way that Mark Milley apparently tried to do with former President Donald Trump, which is a whole other subject. But what do they lose by having you all stay in your positions?
Well, two things. Number one, just to be clear, the Board of Visitors is like a board of trustees. We provide oversight and feedback. So the idea is to make sure that our naval officers are the most trained and educated and have the curriculum and the tools they need to succeed and lead our sailors in the next generation. I've got 3 months left on this term. Like, I'm really not sure. I had one more meeting to go to. I'm really not sure. But what I do believe, and part of the reason that I wrote the book Radical Nation, is because I believe that their policies are in pursuit of a bigger thing, which is a permanent Democratic majority. So you get rid of all the Trump appointees on the Naval Academy, the West Point, and the Air Force Academy Board, and you can start screwing with the curriculum, adding in things like critical race theory, and no one's going to push back if they're all the Biden people. But right now, they know that if they have Trump folks like myself, I'm going to raise my hand and say, wait a second, why are we injecting that into the curriculum at the Naval Academy, or others could say it at West Point? But they want to make sure that they have the latitude that they need to reform these places in their likeness. Joe Biden, and I make it clear in the book, said that he was going to be the most progressive president ever. People didn't take him at his word then, and they should have, because he's doing everything he can to remake the country.
Wow. And that's 3 months left on your term to serve. I mean, there is the phrase, learn to pick your battles. This just seems like a dumb battle for this administration to pick, to go at you and I know there are others, but you particularly had 3 months left on your term. I mean, they could just let you quietly serve it out and then appoint whomever they want to do. Why not?
Exactly.
Why didn't they do that?
Because it's, number one, it's petty. And that's who they are. Number two, it's politics. And I think that, and number three is they know they're not going to get any pushback from the media, right? Not one member of the White House press corps said, excuse me, Jen Psaki, we all hate Sean Spicer in the press corps, so okay, fine. We don't like Kellyanne Conway. But really, can you say that about H.R. McMaster? Can you say that about General Jack Keane? Can you say that about Lieutenant General Guy Swan? Can you say that about Captain Megan Mopps, who's an Afghanistan veteran and West Point grad? I mean, gosh, Jen, is that really appropriate? But you can if you know that you have a complicit White House press corps that isn't going to say anything. And I think at the end of the day, like I said, if it's in pursuit of this greater democratic stranglehold over society that will usher in more and more progressive policies, well, then you're going to do it. And that's what I think that we have to understand, is that they realize that they have a limited amount of time to reshape the nation as quick as possible.
Yeah, I'm talking to our friend Sean Spicer, whose new book is coming out next month. It's something that you said too, just replacing, all of these individuals who are making determinations about what military members study. And I'm keeping this in the back of my mind as we were following some of the news that broke this afternoon. This book that's coming out from WAPO's Bob Woodward and Robert Costa about Chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff General Mark Milley apparently reaching out to the Communist Party of China, his equivalent there, saying that if there was any kind of attack by the United States, that he would let them know first before it happened, which I think back to World War II times. Like, can you imagine if somebody had done that to the Nazis with Normandy? But to that point, and also considering all the language that was around January 6th, their insurrection and all this other stuff, after I was reading this news about Mark Milley, the word treason was trending, and I mean justifiably so, because that would be the literal definition of it if we wanted to, be very clinical. But what you said also just kind of added to this about these military members, you and others being replaced by, people who want a permanent Democratic majority. Whenever we hear the words coup and insurrection, we think of things that happen really quickly, like what we saw in Kabul in Afghanistan. But we don't necessarily think of things that take maybe years or a decade in order to get the right things in place. Are we watching a slow movement of that here? It's kind of a heavy question. I've never asked a question this heavy before like this. But I mean, Occam's razor here.
You're nailing it, right? So here's the thing. In the book, I write that they want D.C. to become a state. They want to pack the court. They want to allow people to come over the southern border, not as one-off individual sets of policies, but collectively. What did they do? They add more voters. They ensure a Democratic majority by adding 2 Democratic senators to their ranks. So all of this is part of a bigger plan. And I think that's the problem, is that we look at so many of these actions in isolation and go, okay, that's a one-off. That's a one-off. No, it's all part of a bigger plan. And if we look at it that way and understand it, the reason that they want to make D.C. a state is because it gives them 2 additional senators. The reason they're letting people over the southern border is it's additional voters. The reason they're packing the court is because they want to ensure that their policies are sustained. But all of this is part of the same strategy. And when you tie it all together, you get it. If you look at it in isolation, you go, oh, that's a shame they're doing that. That's awful that they're doing that. If you look at it collectively, you get it. By the way, I've got Donald Trump on my show today. I'm going to ask him about General Milley, what he thinks about this, because I do think that, you know, that question that you were just asking needs to get asked to him. Does he believe that it rises to that level?
And here's something else to consider as well, just from everything that you said too. I look at there are all of the different anomalies that took place during the last election. I mean, I know that voter fraud is real because I've been dealing with our elections board here. I had someone illegally registered to vote at my house. So I'm just not going to get lectured to from people who sit here and tell me that voter fraud isn't anything to be concerned about. It's ridiculous to try to get it remedied. But just looking at it like this, let's just say if all of the accusations, because I like evidence, however, I'm not ruling anything out. Let's just look at it and just think, if 2020 election was so questionable and there were so many different one-offs that it contributed to destabilizing, the integrity of the electoral system as a whole, if that wasn't successful, was this kind of military Mark Milley type of coup the plan B?
No, I don't. Look, I've served in the military for a long time. The men and women who serve in the military truly do adhere to an oath to the Constitution. I'll take,
even if their higher ups may not. Well,
again, as an officer, we follow lawful orders that are given to us. And I've never seen anything at my level. Now, then again, I've never served at a level that were that would come up at, but I just don't.
You mean, Sean, you couldn't just call up the CCP's press secretary and say, hey, hey, Communist Party of China's press secretary, mouthpiece, just FYI, if something happens, I'm going to let you know. I mean, and I don't mean to sound like trite or to sound like I'm wearing a tinfoil hat. To me, this is just crazy that we're even having this conversation to begin with. Sean, if you were to tell me 10 years ago, go ahead.
But the past week, Dana, the idea that we're having a discussion of how many Americans we left in Afghanistan. The idea that the Secretary of State testified today and said, yes, we, the United States government, gave the Taliban, a terrorist organization, a list of Afghan nationals, green card holders, and American citizens so that they could get them through checkpoints. The idea that we left them military equipment, what is going on? And the idea, I'm sorry that you and I probably are the only two people, except for your listeners and mine, that are not shocked. How are people not taking to the street saying, well, what's going on in this country that we gave a terrorist organization a list of American citizens?
Yeah. You're breaking up a little bit right now. Oh, there you go. You were breaking up just a little bit, but we're out of time right now. We absolutely have to talk again, and I look forward to seeing you talk with former President Trump as well. Sean Spicer, the book Radical Nation, out October 26th next month. Always a pleasure. Sean, congrats on the book. Good to see you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Coming up, Secretary of State Anthony Blinken testifies before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee about the disastrous Afghan exit. Also, censorship for you, VIP treatment for others on Facebook. Senator Marsha Blackburn joins us next. Keep it here. Secretary of State Anthony Blinken testified again today, but this time before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee about the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. Happened on his watch. But he's not taking any responsibility, nor is he allowing it for the president either. And censorship for you, VIP treatment for others on Facebook, and of course the breaking news that happened this afternoon with Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Mark Milley. Tennessee Senator Marsha Blackburn joins us now to talk about all of it. Senator, you are a very, very busy woman today. We appreciate your time. I'll start with Blinken, though. I'm completely dissatisfied with the answers that I saw from him, especially when he kept sticking to this idea that there was some sort of concrete plan, as though there was a handbook that was given to the Biden administration for him to follow based on Trump's withdrawal plans from Afghanistan. But what's weird to me, Senator, is that Why didn't that apply to the Iran agreement or the Paris Accord or remain in Mexico policy, but yet Afghanistan is somehow different?
Yeah, it's so disingenuous. And I will add, Dana, I think it is incredibly disrespectful of the men and women in uniform for Antony Blinken to go out here and say, well, you know, we were told this, that, and the other, when what they did was to throw away what President Trump and Secretary Pompeo, our NATO allies, our Afghan partners had agreed upon. And it was a conditions-based withdrawal. And Joe Biden took out the calendar and that big red marker, and he circled September 11th and said, this is the day we're going to be out of there. I want a victory lap. It's a political decision. I want to say I'm the president that ended 20 years of war in Afghanistan. But the point he missed in all of this is it wasn't a war against the Afghan people. It was a war against the ideology of terrorism. It was called the War on Terror. And the Taliban was seeking safe haven in Afghanistan, in Pakistan. They were looking for places that they could go and hide out and cook up plots against the free world.
No, that's, I mean, completely. And of course, now this is going to be a dark spot on the map in terms of having any kind of intelligence network. Still no total on how many actual Americans or SIVs are left in Kabul. And then the way that he presented, or the way that he explained, Senator, the State Department's, I guess, eager. It made it sound like the State Department was so easy to work with. But I've heard from so many members of Congress that this actually isn't the case. What has been your experience?
Our caseworkers have been very frustrated with trying to get information out of the State Department. And we've got a lot of career bureaucrats over at the State Department that should have been working on this months ago. And that has been a point of frustration. And Dana, as we go through the next few weeks, we're going to have briefings. We have a Senate Armed Services have had a briefing today that was a classified briefing. We want to find out exactly what happened, what the decision process was, make certain that this does not happen again. This has been a debacle. It's an embarrassment to the United States. It's disrespectful of the men and women in uniform and of the command team who we hear were saying, hey, you know, you can't do this with a real short runway. You got to have a little bit more lead time to make certain that we do this right and that we remove all of our citizens and our Afghan partners.
Right, completely. I want to ask you about Facebook and their special VIP program apparently here coming up, but I have to get your reaction to the news that broke this afternoon based on this book written by Washington Post reporters Bob Woodward and Robert Costa, that regarding this excerpt regarding Mark Milley, chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff, who under President Trump at the time, I guess maybe there's a reason why they weren't able to see the Taliban coming through and monitor them on WhatsApp, because they were too busy. He was apparently too busy trying to figure out how to undermine President Trump at the time. The news is out that he, well, according to the book, apparently called his equivalent over with the Communist Party of China to say that if the United States was to do anything, it would not be by surprise. He would let them know. Do you identify, if that action is accurate, if that story is accurate, do you regard that as fitting the definition of treason?
I have not read the book. I have heard the reports. What is being reported is of tremendous concern. I have not talked to General Milley, but I can assure you this is something that we're going to have questions about and want to get some solid answers to. It is of concern. President Donald Trump, as president and in that role, was the commander-in-chief.
Yes, was the commander-in-chief, and to hear just some of the stuff again, and I know it's in this book that's coming out, but it's odd to me that, and I hope that an investigation is going to be quick, because I mean, there were people who, granted, they trespassed, well, I don't know if they broke into after they were having the rally at the Capitol, which, you know, we're all consistent on. Vandalism is vandalism and unprotected speech is unprotected speech. But to have people who are really hitting, you know, maximum penalty if they walked in and took a selfie in the chamber, and then you have a guy who maybe committed an act of treason if the investigation holds out, who is still in his position as chairman of Joint Chiefs of Staff. So I would hope that, I mean, do you think that an investigation, this is something that Congress, that Senate and House would be able to do expeditiously?
I can assure you we will look into this and find out what actually transpired.
I hope so. Senator, you've always been very, very critical, and rightfully so, of Facebook and some of the policies that Facebook has undertaken, and this newest one, this whitelisting of certain preferred users. Now, Facebook has been in a lot of trouble. Mark Zuckerberg has gone and testified before Congress, Jack Dorsey as well. And now to discover that Facebook may have allowed some people to just bypass the fact checkers. I mean, it's amazing to see even people who created mRNA technology have some of these like fact checker labels put over them on Facebook, which is kind of stunning. But this whitelisting, this I don't know, double standard and treatment. That doesn't seem to be, whether it's like their terms of service or 230 or something. That doesn't seem like consistent access for everyone. What are your thoughts on this policy that Facebook has?
Yeah, well, Dana, you're right. I've been on this issue for years. When it comes to privacy, data security, Section 230 needing to be reformed, what we have known is that Facebook had a pattern of censorship, and that they had two tiers of service that they seemed to provide. And what this report shows is that they do indeed have two different tiers of service. They have X-check, cross-check, they have whitelisting, and if you're one of the elites, you get one set of services, and if you're everybody else, you're going to get censored, you can get shadow banned, you can get blocked. These are the things that we have said for years, that we were seeing anecdotal evidence that this was taking place inside Facebook's headquarters with their content moderators, and indeed, the whistleblower, the documents that we're seeing prove that this is what they have been doing. Now, reforming Section 230, that is something that we are working on, changing that language, looking at how we deal with Facebook. Indeed, Senator Blumenthal filed our bill on app stores and making those more equitable and fair, and the payment systems and how it applied to app developers that are smaller developers. And we were building some steam with that. We'll still pass the bill, but Facebook or Apple moved forward and changed their practice and said, okay, we're going to allow this. So this is what congressional attention, when you have a building of consensus among members of the Senate, and sometimes it takes a little bit longer for those of us as conservatives to make the inroads we need to make, because we don't have big media with us. Big media is out there protecting big social media and the Democrats. But it shows you that the American people are speaking up. Social media is an information service. The internet is classified as an information service, as the new town square. And that is to be equal access.
Right. Right, and that's a very good point, Senator. I'm glad that because I know that there's some in D.C. that don't quite understand the difference between, you know, acting as a facilitator of discussion and then editorializing. And you're not saying repeal it, which is what I appreciate. You're on the side of, okay, well, this is editorialization, so this has to be redefined to include algorithms, which is, you know, back when that law was written, you know, that wasn't something that people were looking at algorithms as editorial content.
You're exactly right on that. And new entrants into the marketplace need that safe harbor and those Section 230 provisions.
Yes.
You look at Getter, you look at Parler, you look at new entrants. They need that ability to deal with people that are using their website or deal with vendors. But these big mature companies, they have outgrown that. And we do want to draw that line so that someone who is doing a news service, delivering content, providing content, or someone who is just in the mode of share and public discussion, that there is a difference in the way that is recognized and the way that it is treated. At the same time, we're moving forward with online privacy legislation so that we not only protect online consumers, but their children, to rein in some of this data mining that is being done on children and to look a little bit deeper. The Wall Street Journal had something in today about Facebook and Instagram and the research they have that shows how harmful this is for children. And how sometimes there was an article yesterday about how they sell the information on children, and then people hack it and they go in and they're getting credit and using these kids' names. And you know, this is, we have to protect our children and we have to protect online consumers. And this is the United States. You have a right to privacy, and you should be the person that owns your virtual you, not your platform that you're on or a company that you're doing business with.
Amen to that. Senator Marsha Blackburn, always good to see you. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll look forward to speaking again soon.
Yes.
All right, folks, coming up after handing the Taliban Afghanistan, the administration also threw in a gift card for $64 million. Oh, and your tax dollars are paying for it. We'll tell you all about it next. How much equity do you have in your home? Cybercrime experts are alerting homeowners that the more equity they have, the greater the chance criminals could target them. Home title theft is one of the fastest growing crimes, and home title lock, America's home leader in title protection, is warning homeowners that they could potentially be victims and not know it. So here's how. Cyber thieves can search hundreds of public databases for high equity homes. They can find your home's online title, forge your signature stating that you sold your home, and take out loans with your equity. Insurance or common identity theft programs are not going to cover you. Protect your most valuable asset. Register your address to see if you could potentially be a victim, and receive a complete title history of your home, a $100 value for free. Visit HometitleLock.com. Well, AOC thinks we should tax the rich. Heck yeah, just do it. I mean, we're giving half of our money to the government for them to spend it. That's always a good idea, right? Whenever that happens. But wait a minute, your public schools are a disaster? Wait a minute, your DMV barely works? Your DMV, your city's filled with homeless people and trash spills down the sides of the freeway and nobody does anything about it? Well, hang on, because when AOC gets done raising your taxes, you can rest easy that this time your hard-earned tax dollars can go to a very worthy cause. They can go to the Taliban. I'm actually being completely serious. So check out this press release from the Office of Press Relations. It says, today the United States announced nearly $64 million in additional humanitarian, that's the asterisk word there, assistance for the people of Afghanistan. This funding from the U.S. Agency for International Development, USAID, and the U.S. Department of State will flow through independent organizations such as the UN, which is totally not at all corrupt, and NGOs, and provide life-saving support, I'm sure, directly to Afghans facing the compounding effects of insecurity. Gosh, this is the longest damn press release ever in the history of life. You will notice the one reason they didn't cite for needing to give the Afghan people $64 million, the fact that Joe Biden screwed up and handed the entire country over to the Taliban in 11 days. It seems like a pretty good reason the Afghan people are in need of foreign aid. If you had told someone 20 years ago that after 9/11, that the way this conflict would end, it would cost $1 trillion, thousands of lives, and then we would just hand it all right back to the Taliban, along with a gift card good for $64 million, funded by American taxpayers, nobody would have believed it. And now remember, we already left them $80 billion plus in military equipment. So they're better off than some of the NATO nations now. And we were told it was all left behind in the rush to exit. Sure. But given how fast we've opened the purse strings to give the Taliban $64 million more of your tax dollars, it makes you wonder, in any case, tax the rich, like AOC says, because then the government will give your money and give it to the Taliban. And they're different now. Taliban ride bumper cars. Taliban go to the gym. They're letting women wear different color burqas, like black and blue. Bruises colors, at least when they're not hitting women. And you know what? They're inclusive. I mean, sure, there's like not one single woman in their new government so far, but give it time. Just give them 64 million tax dollars for the Americans that they won't let leave Kabul, which we would call hostages, and they'll change. And we would call that 64 million ransom. Actually, that $64 million, that's going to the Taliban. It's not going to go to the Afghan people. Do you really believe that the Taliban are going to distribute it to the Afghan people? They're probably going to invest it in their opium business that helps make things like heroin that end up back in America. Because as much as selling opium violates their religion, they just never seem to get around to stopping that opium from being harvested and sold. And that's why they have killing season. Stopping women from showing their faces, they most definitely get around to that. And rest easy, knowing your $64 million in tax dollars, that'll help the Taliban do it. I'm sure that'll help make you sleep at night. Tax the rich indeed, AOC, and give it to the Taliban. You can't make this stuff up. That does it for us tonight. Thanks for tuning in. Good night, and don't bend the knee.